So,
all right, folks, we're going to get into our first session of the afternoon, strategic doing. And I want to introduce Brenton. He gets the award for coming the farthest to be with us for this retreat. He came all the way from North Carolina. So he gets the award for coming all the way up here. I'm going to allow Brent to introduce himself, and then I guess Aaron will introduce himself.
Yeah, well, thank you, Juan. Thank you for being such a gracious host. Food and hospitality. So yes, Brent Brandon with Forward Cities. We're an organization that does national work, trying to close the racial wealth gap by using entrepreneurship, small business ownership as a vehicle for change. So we've been doing work for about 7 years, but we are pretty centered right now on about 9 different communities. Over the time, we've worked in about 3 dozen, and one of them is what we call the Rio Grande region. So through the Kauffman Foundation, we're running a 4-city, we'll call it city, engagement that's centered on looking at different ways to experiment with getting entrepreneurs, starters, in this case growers, access to resources that they might not know are available, sparking new ones where it makes sense to, and of trying to test those in a way that can be proven so that we can make a case for funding to support that work after. So it's all meant to have kind of a sustainable practice to it, and it's all community driven. I was very encouraged by the conversation this morning because it feeds a lot of, I think, the ethos of what we're trying to do is a human-centered approach. Let's hear from the people who are directly encountering some of the issues that they need to overcome if they're going to be successful in what the passion drives them to do. And you know, this idea of networks over hierarchy. I think we talked about it in a lot of different ways, whether it be structure or the colonialist history, but it is really hierarchy that no matter how you look at it, that it's kept people down, kept them from accessing opportunities they should have. And we think that networks are the way to solve it. This is a beautiful example. It is a beautiful example of network in action. Probably one of the most dynamic that I've seen in the 2 dozen cities there. All right, smile through the mask. I won't post it. And these networks can overcome some of the power structures that exist that have kept the status quo. So what we've done here for the last, we're almost 2 years now? Yeah, almost 2 years with what we call eShip Rio Grande, is we focused on grower initiatives that will, in a lot of ways, align with the work that you're already trying to do, but hopefully surface some new opportunities. And then also to cement an ecosystem, which again, this is right here, that can live well beyond any of us and hopefully create a generational impact that will ensure all voices. So that's me. I'm in Wake Forest, North Carolina. I was a career educator for a long time until I decided I didn't want to be a principal. And then I ran an educational nonprofit for a while, and somehow, some way, made it over to entrepreneurship. So I've been with Forward Cities for 3 years, and I am very lucky enough to work with.
Hey everyone, I'm Erin. Absolute pleasure to be here with you all today in this space and I about 2 years ago became the director for each of your big focus on started already. And I think one of the really for us to learning to really live in the land our future. So we've been really lucky. We've several of farmers that are made that sense of solidarity by bringing a passion of themselves. One of the exciting things about what we're about to do together this year, it's another kind of framework, right? It is a framework, but it's really focusing on those individuals. In this collective moment, what do we bring that we have within our essence as we sit here? Yeah, as Aaron, what are my skills? What do I do? What can I offer that's within my capacity? And I might be able to offer. I can write reports. I can do this. I can do that. But is that really going to make sense for me without really spreading myself too thin? So it's an exercise of really checking in with yourself, part of placing time to this point. That will really tomorrow and go back into our respective places. Remembering what we have. Really authentic in that. So, and I've seen this process quickly. Is one of the things I love about it when it's first big problems. Yeah. So things outside and go in and move around. That's my invitation for you. And I really am excited to see what we generate.
Me too. I'll come back to kind of the do that comes with doing in a minute, but Aaron runs a council, I think it's really important to know, and they've gone through this process before. So Pam is on that Fishbowl Brand Council as well, and David. So David, I don't know, you've been through the process of strategic doing. Did you want to maybe share a couple words of what you took away from it?
For me, the first time I did it, something very different. I didn't come from, NGO work. I was in private industry, and so getting into this is a very poignant way of, as the way kind of Brent first described it, it's like we need to get to the point of where we find out what we're going to do. For me, that was like you just talk yourself into the circle, right? But by going through the process and Brett taking us through it, he explained what the process is going to be, but in general and in terms of Aaron just talked about. I had skills that I could. I didn't have policy background. I didn't know how to write the right letters to people. I didn't have those contacts, but I'm a good communicator. I'm also good to do. I love getting stuff done. And so I brought energy, I brought ideas as a person, and I brought my time and promise that I would be authentic ideas, and that I would spread their ideas. And that's enough. So it was enough to bring to the table. And then as we started going through the process, I realized that there was more I could bring. But the process was great because it wasn't that we started out with, we have to get this thing done. Here's your assignment. Here's your assignment. I know you're good at that. And it wasn't handing out. Everybody putting in, mixing up the whole salad bowl, and then ultimately kind of pulling out of what our project was going to be, these were the timeline. Did it in such a way that nobody felt like I'm never going to get this done. You guys are going to help me. Very empowering that we as a group felt like I love this. Like it's crazy. We've never talked about it before, but with all of us together in this room, we can get this done. And so it was for me a really good tool. And the second time I went through it was even better because I went in knowing, David, what are your skills? What can you bring to the table? These opportunities. So coming today at this, I'm so excited because we talked a lot about our skills. We know each other better than I think we did when we first started. And so I'm just really excited to get you guys better with your strengths. And I'm hoping that you also work with me and my strengths. And I can also approach Sherry and say, Sherry, I know you. You've been here. And I also know that you have this skill. And Sherry is larger than saying, you know what? I don't have time for this. I'm like, is that honestly, what we ended up jumbling up with that last time was really fantastic. Because it wasn't any one person's idea, it was an amalgamation of everybody.
Thank you, Dan. It's very much a network approach. It's very egalitarian. And if you think about the conversation this morning, which I've heard all too many times and with very different stakeholders, in very different regions, but it's the same kind of conversation, about we're fighting such a tremendous uphill battle. So there was many times even today where I was just like, I feel defeated. I was personalized. I don't know if I can do this. How am I going to make a big enough change to actually affect something? So kind of riffing here, but that's kind of like looking at the big apple and saying, how do we bite this? How do we eat it? How do we eat the apple? I want to shrink the apple. Strategic doing helps to shrink the apple so that we can take very little bites. We can take ownership. We can feel like we're all part of a very egalitarian process. And then at the end of the day, we can walk out of here knowing exactly what small step we can do, our next baby step forward that can move a shared initiative that's been drive forward. So the idea here is I've used strategic doing. Okay, so I mentioned I've done about 24. I did half of those without strategic doing. And man, did we meander on how we were going to get work done, how we were going to even decide what to do. It was tough. It was discouraging in some cases. We started strategic doing fall of 19, and what a difference, tremendous difference for me personally, as I tried to engage communities and get them to come to a table, human-centered way, and actually design something that was going to have some level of impact. The thought here is you have these work groups, right? And if we could get the working groups just to play in the sandbox for today, we're going to Fishbowl today with the Mexico Grown Group. And then tomorrow with the other 3 groups, and just see what happens, kind of some, spontaneous fermentation, okay, for people, and just see what happens, see what develops. You might get a nice anchoring and a nice road, a path forward, how this group can go from talking about what we're all doing to having a unique initiative. So we're going to test it, see how it goes with the New Mexico Grown Group. Denise, how are we spread out right now? Great to.
I think we are spread out.
Pretty spread.
Yeah.
So can you raise a hand if you're New Mexico Grown?
And I'm gonna jump in here to say, we don't have an official New Mexico Grown Group that we've launched. So we're on our list of folks that expressed interest early on. We had Pam, Helga, looking around the room, Erin, myself, Denise, Isabel, tomorrow we're interested in the supplier program role. But if there's anyone else here, Ophelia, we had you on that group. But if there's anybody else that's interested in being in the Fishbowl for NF Grown, we're trying to get that group up off the ground right now and really define what the work looks like, because we know that the New Mexico Grown Group has the most overlaps with all of the other groups. So that's why we're asking for today, even if you just want to sit in today in the Fishbowl while we work on an exercise, that way your voices are represented. We can carry it forward, figuring out just how we meet as a group, because there's already 20 spaces.
Mike, did you want to maybe join us too?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe you're working on the group program. So yeah, however it makes sense. But the ask is for those of you that remained or that are interested, we need to be in this front weird row on this slide. So we're gonna mix it up, shuffle it up. And again, anybody who wants to talk to the next.
I know you are.
So if you are not a part of New Mexico Grown, we're gonna, it's after lunch, it's good to get up, move around a little bit. We're gonna ask you to slide back to the outside of the Fishbowl. We'll call this like the fake core person, and then those of us that are part of New Mexico Grown, please come in and assume a seat. And if you have a laptop, this is a great time to bring it out, because we're gonna actually go through this process together. The reason we're calling it a Fishbowl is because the other 3 working groups, you'll get a chance to work on your group tomorrow, but you're going to witness and think and ideate around how you could tap into your process today. So while that's happening, those of you that are part of the food access group, we've got what's called the formative question that I'll talk through in a little bit. Those of you that are part of the food hub capacity group, here's your formative question. Food quality, I'm realizing this might be hard to see from this side. Apologies there, but You got your formative question. In just a minute, I'll kind of flesh out what exactly that means. You're totally.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
They're just watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It kind of works. In my mind, we'll see if it works. All right, and for those of you in the fishbowl, while I go through and explain strategic doing, if you have your laptops, if you have access to the Slack channel, Michael has posted it in the general.
No, I put it in the Mexico Grown.
The Mexico Grown channel, there's a link in there, just in the Mexico Grown folks. Jump into Slack. If you're not handy with the Slack, or don't have a laptop, so Eugene doesn't have a laptop, Thomas doesn't have a laptop, Mike doesn't have a laptop. All right, we're a little laptop hamster. Yeah, for sure, Helga, you can share with Denise.
Does everybody
That
take
works.
your picture so that I know who to wrap it? Oh, okay.
Beautiful. Eugene, you want to work with Thomas? Okay.
Mike's sure is, yes. They like the other.
In the middle there, I got. Now,
There should be.
this is what we're gonna go through. I'll explain a little bit before we actually jump in. This is called a workshop. The workshop is like the catalyst, all the work that's gonna come after. They're not gonna do a true workshop today, and you won't do a true workshop tomorrow because the data capture is gonna be a little trickier. We're gonna do the best we can. So you're seeing a version of strategic doing. And the other thing is, like, this is something that I think in each of your communities, the local kind of ecosystem that you work in, you can apply this. It's I just got trained in it because I realized it was going to be good for nonprofit work we do nationally. But I want you to be kind of intrigued by it to say, maybe I can use this in a group that I'm working on. All right, I've been teasing it, but what is it? Okay, so strategic doing is basically built around a wheel, a cycle, if you will, that is mostly just the narrowing of the funnel. We start off with what could we do? What are all the realm of possibility things that we could do? What should we do? Let's apply a little bit of logic and reason to it and try to determine what makes the most sense. What will we do? What will we do? And then what's our 30-30? I'll explain that in a little bit, but that's going to be kind of your action step.
And again, I think Brent said this, but tomorrow, all of the work teams are gonna do a breakout, so pay attention to this session. The idea is we couldn't explain how to do it without doing it. So the instruction was, let's just guinea pig it. So for those of you in the room, I know it feels a little taxing to watch other people work, but hopefully it will help tomorrow really activate.
And we'll assist that. We'll go beyond just having you watch. We'll actually get you thinking. That's why we have your formative questions up, which I'll review in more detail in a minute. So you can start thinking about what would go into your thoughts. So strategic planning traditionally has been a process where, everybody sits down, you get all the right inputs. It's top down, usually hierarchical, but maybe there's a senior team that leads it. And they determine for the next 12, 24, 5 years, 10 years, this is what we want to do. You set it, it's out there, it's concrete dries, you follow it, you start to stray, and you wait until the next strategic planning session 2-3 years later, and you revisit. Strategic doing is more of an agile approach. So it means that rather than us saying, here's where we want to be in 5 years, let's just jump in now. Let's take a step forward as a group, see what we can accomplish, iterate as we go, be comfortable with kind of failing forward. And as we start to learn things about what makes the most sense, find that path together. So that's a big difference from it. It was created, there was a book about 10 years ago called Strategic Doing, coincidentally, that really kind of fleshed out the process. And they were just trying to break this traditional way of strategic planning and also the top-down hierarchy. The concept is simple, and I've heard a lot of examples of this, but like a community or a cohort of people that are doing work together can have good success. They can have this rise, whatever it is that they're trying to do. I think of Arturo, he talked about like the 60s, how there was this new world coming. Everybody was really digging in, and all the youth, especially of America, felt like we're gonna change the world. This is about to happen. And then we get to the 70s, and I don't know if it was disco that distracted us or what, but it didn't come to fruition. Not to the full fruition that was possible. So we hit a plateau on what was possible. Now, what needed to happen was societally, we needed to jump an escalator. That means go off the one that had plateaued for us, find a new one that was going to break through for us. And then you can have a new kind of era of progress. Well, we didn't get that. And so we're still kind of trying to solve for some of the same problems in a number of ways. If you think of a business that's done this very well, it's Apple. Apple, when I was a kid, was making these green screen PCs that played on its stool, but couldn't really do anything with, didn't know how to make sense of how to use it. Next thing you know, they get it into your house. Got bright colors, they call it Macintosh, all this stuff. They kind of mastered that lane. If they had stayed there, it's over. They would have been Blockbuster, right? That's a great example of how a company that didn't jump an escalator. Blockbuster was like, everybody's coming to the video store. We got rid of all the VHS tapes. Now we got DVDs. Problem solved, right? And as we know, they died like a dinosaur. Apple kept iterating. They kept jumping. It's not going to be the PC. What's next? It's music. These little tiny iPods, came out 2022, whatever years ago. All of a sudden became all the rage. Now they're into music. You know what happened next? About 10 years later, it's the phone. All right? And trust me, Apple doesn't iterate again. Hopefully it's not this whole metaverse thing, but whatever it is, they're going to go the way of the dinosaurs. Those are companies, but we can think about this from community. You can see where community is stalled on any issue that you can think of, about how they got to a point where they couldn't do more with the models that they were using. So what strategic doing is it says, it's time to jump escalators. It's time for you to get off the plateau that you are on, tap into something new, so that you can start to iterate and create something that has more practical use and impact than what it did. Concept of 30-30, the 30-day thing. This is just a way of saying, let's not create that 2-year chasm between when we say a strategic plan is going to start and finish. Let's, as a group, commit to coming back together frequently. Sometimes it's 14 days. Sometimes it's 7 days. Sometimes it's 60, but it's something that has frequencies. And it gets people to say, all right, we as a group, the red dot, we're going to decide to do each of these things individually. And then we go out and do them. And then we come back and we assess. Did it work? Didn't work? All right, let's be agile. Let's pivot. Let's fix. Go out again and we come back. And the strength of the people, like from here, they're usually good. When we do strategic doing, it comes out here pretty solid. It's a question of like, what does it look like here and what does it look like here? And that is going to be the commitment of the people. So it becomes like an authentic engagement. What it does is it puts accountability on individuals in a way that feels reasonable, feels like they can lean in and still accomplish something of significance because it's part of the collective path. So it's built, this whole process is built around 10 rules. I'm not going to do this part for the 10 rules. We're going to just jump into the action. So let me get a thumbs up, thumbs down if you've got the action pack open. Okay, so just to be the Mexico Grown group that's accessing that. The rest of you want to look at it, that's fine, but you can have it on the screen here. So this is something that we built. Strategic doing is like, again, it's an institute, they wrote a book. They used to just do these in person with paper. They give you this big packet and sit there, you fill it out. Then some poor soul called the knowledge keeper would have to take it all and enter it into a spreadsheet. And if that didn't happen, the whole process stopped. So when we started doing it, it was right when COVID was getting ready to hit. We knew that we needed something digital. So Forward Cities created this digital action pack, which helps us to navigate the system in real time. Now, like I said, we're not doing a legit workshop today. We're going to do kind of a truncated version, just to get a taste of it, just to get you started. But I want to go through these steps so that you can get an understanding of how they work. So rule 1 is create a safe and maintain a safe space for deep focused conversation. After sitting in this room this morning, I know that you have a safe space. Many of the groups that I'm working with, they don't even know who each other are. They might have like a common interest coming together for the first time. It could be a neighborhood advocacy group that cares about a commercial corridor that's really just gone downhill and they want to fight poverty in their neighborhood. Could be anybody, but they probably haven't worked together and understood each other the way that you all have. So there's a big gain, I think, that comes from that. I think you've checked the box on rule one. Second one is to frame a conversation about what's called an appreciation. Now, Aaron talked about wicked problem solving, but I want you to dismiss this whole idea of problem solving. I'm not here to solve problems. Heard about problems, heard how hard they are to overcome. This is a slight mental shift, but I think it's huge. I want you to think about creating new opportunities. Go into get out of a scarcity mindset and go into a generative mindset for this exercise. Think about what could be. So every time we have one of these workshops that we run, you want to center it around what's called this framing question. It's a very appreciative question. A great way to start any one of them is how might. How might we is promising, it's progressive, it's inspirational, it's something that makes us go, okay, I can start to think about how might we do this together in a way that I never did before. Not how do we solve, because do you see that it's a slight shift? Do you see the shift in what it does? And I think it's huge. And so that's the second rule is create this appreciative question. Again, this is a good reminder for food access folks. This is yours. Sorry, I know I started as a teacher. My writing is atrocious. It's how might we increase awareness and preference for locally grown food. For food hub capacity, it's how might we increase farmer engagement, capacity support for local regional food hubs. And for food quality, it's how might we improve the accessibility of information and supplies to align food quality practices for farmers and buyers. You're going to see those tomorrow when you jump into your group, and I want you to have that, centered in your mind right now. Go through the process. As I walk them through it, you're going to get a chance to take a few notes that'll get you started. For New Mexico Brown, which is truly an informative process, it's how might we improve farmer participation in the improved supplier flow. Okay, so that's what we're going to center everything around. That's our compass. That's what we come back to every time, so that whatever thought we make about the next step in the process is informed by that question. Okay, so let's start with this. Any questions on that question? Come off clear? Do we get it? Does it feel like it would actually make a change that would, improve the lives of the people that we care about? Slight effort. Hesitation makes me think
I
there's
guess I have a
thoughts.
comment. Can I make?
Yeah.
So, having worked on this, and now it's been a while, this question, I think I just want to underscore that we called out farmer participation. We know that the New Mexico Grown and the Approved Supplier Program has two parties involved, right? There's buyers and farmers. But we felt like the imperative farmer participation and engagement and ownership, because that's kind of the wake of the way we're looking at it. So I guess I just wanted to articulate that we realize that might feel like a half statement, but it's because we're prioritizing farmer engagement.
And I think at this stage it's important framing too, because what you can do here is you can take one step. Then you can think about, and this is what we did, really, I mean, we're doing a navigator pilot and we're focused really on a handful of growers. One of the pilots we're running that we ran through strategic. The next phase though is to get the value chain folks in the mix. It's an escalation. So this can be a starting. I like that. All right, so that's rules 1 and 2. Rule 3, uncover hidden assets people are willing to share. This is what everybody's going to be able to think with their framing question in mind about what can I bring to the table. For this group, this is where it gets interactive. So my folks with 2 people on a laptop, you're going to be it's going to be truly shared, but you're going to enter information for each person. The way it works is it's a Google Sheet, so anybody can access it, enter it. You're going to put your name in, and I'll just find it. Say good. And then we're going to work through this question or this series of questions. What are assets that each of you can bring to the table that goes back to this formative question, this compass of ours? How might we improve farmer participation and improve supplier? Now, I like the 1 degree of separation game. It doesn't have to be necessarily something that you have direct access to. It does have to be something that somebody 100% can bring to the table. We don't want to get too adventurous about, I think we have this asset. Let's be pretty confident, because other people are going to be getting very creative with what you bring to the table and creating something new. All right, so at this time, I'm going to delete myself, and be careful. It's Google Sheets. It's not perfect. Trust me, I've seen it be very imperfect before. But as our participants are jumping in, try to find a box that doesn't have a colored line around it. I'll get mine off there right now. And just go ahead and enter your names down the line. We have 10 participants, so each of you should be grabbing your box. And then in real time, we'll see your names appear when you hit enter.
Oh, well, you got deleted.
Julia.
That's very funny.
And as they do that, I'll just show you, your names are gonna now transfer throughout the deck. So as we go to new sections, then their names will transfer. Once we get everybody in.
Oh, you did. You know what, I think it takes a while to.
Yeah, you gotta hit enter. If it doesn't hit enter,
Oh, I didn't hit enter. Me neither.
you'll see it, but we won't. So as they do that, I'm gonna move along. So we're gonna get these assets. Then rule 4 is how do we link and leverage those assets in new ways? So it's like a potluck, right? But it's ingredient based. Everybody brings ingredients to the table. We're gonna use a lot of food analogies to give the audience. But everybody brings a handful of ingredients to the table. We all kind of look at the table and we're like, you know, I could really take this, and this, combine them together in a new way. So this is a link and leverage step that helps us to create some new opportunities. This is the iterative part. This is the ideation part of it. All right, so it goes from raw, like here's what I have to contribute, to okay, what's a new opportunity? And you'll see that when we walk through it. Then we kind of narrow this. Remember, I said this is really the narrowing of a funnel in a lot of these. How do we democratically, as a group of 10 with one vote, one person, determine the 3, or in some cases 4, but we're going to say 3 opportunities that we want to consider further, and let's flesh those out. Let's kind of give them a bumper sticker title that we can remember. Then let's use objectivity, and let's really determine, like, based on the type of impact this would have and how easy it would be to implement it. How do we want to really rate which one of these makes the most sense to move forward? So again, we're narrowing more and more, all with the goal of getting to a point where you have this one opportunity. You're going to watch this group do this in the next 60 minutes. There's one opportunity that they can flesh out, add some characteristics to, so we know what it would look like if we were successful, add some metrics to, so we know that we either hit that success mark or not. And then we turn it loose. Then it's like, all right, y'all know what we want to do. We fleshed it out, we agreed to it, we voted on it, we put an objective lens on it. Now let's get to work on this. What's one bite of this little apple that we're going to try to solve for, that we can walk out of the door today and feel confident we can deliver on in the next 7 months. All right. Now I'm leaving all that to y'all. So usually, as a table guide, I would walk the group through the workshop, and I'd come back. We'd have the 30-30, and I would walk the group through that. I'm going to stop right here. Through your big easy this group today, and that's the expectation for y'all tomorrow. And then, honestly, I'm putting it on you. If you take the initiative as a working group, you're like, I see the value in this. Then you'll go through at your next working group meeting, and you'll say, all right, let's go ahead, let's flesh out the characteristics. This was going to prove successful. And then if you feel really good about it, you can say, all right, let's come. So I'll say this is the one thing we'll do. But I'm going to lead you towards the water, not even to the water. You're going to be a few steps from it, and it's your choice if you want to take those final 2 steps. So, with that being said, let's go back to our beginning. So here's our group, the New Mexico Growing Working Group. I am your table guide. We have our framing question built. We talked about, we agreed to it. I think we should have all 10 in. Have an 8. Where's Eugene? Oh, okay, got it. So I'm gonna do all kinds of tricks to you. You gotta tell us. I'm gonna do all kinds of tricks. You 10 just worry about entering new text. I'll change font sizes and stuff like that, and I'll walk you through the process. All right, so I've given you kind of the overview. Now it's time to get in. But before we do, any clarity questions about the what or the how or the why? This.
We're all watching.
I'll watch it. You'll all be watching. All right,
Okay.
so the assets. When we think of assets, we can think of them in any way we want to try to answer that question. Again, everything goes back to that question, but what I recommend is you think about them in these 4 ways. A physical asset, meaning a space that you can utilize for shared purpose. A skill and knowledge asset, something that somebody or some group of people or some organization, something that they do that's novel, unique, and really, again, traces back to improving farmer participation, the improved supplier program. Something that's a social network asset. How can we tap into, there's this group that's doing some really creative work in this space, and y'all know these, they're probably popping to mind right now. And then a capital asset, we heard about this morning. Again, the universal, all 36 cities that we've worked in, funding is an issue. However, there might be some capital assets, direct monetary or, just of value assets that you can bring to the table to qualify for that. So what I want you each to do is go through and in your boxes, this is Ophelia's boxes across this row, here's Denise's. I want you to just type in 3 assets that you can bring to the table that go back and trace to improving farmer participation. And for you on the outside, I want you to use your compass, maybe just jot down, type on your computer, think through what assets you could bring to try to solve for that question. That's what you want to do. Okay, I'll give you about 5, give you about 7 minutes to do this step. Another clarification on this step in the process. If an asset is to be really used, it has to be defined. For example, our first one there is connectability. What can we do with connectability? What kind of connectability? So I'm gonna pick on Ophelia.
No.
Just for a minute. But I'm gonna pick on all other people too. So connectability to who and for what reason? Be clear about who it is, so that the way you want to look at it is you want everybody else to look at the assets on there and say, I know what to do with that. I know what that is. I can understand that. Connectability is an asset stake. Be clear about connectability to who and for what reason. I'll continue to do that as we go through.
Yeah, Brent, mine is really long.
Bring what? Yep.
Thank you.
Right, I'm working with both. Finding both spaces.
Just go with the 3 keywords. You know where your line is, right? There's working exams done for a second. I like it. I was 3 exact second years.
Yeah.
Better than 2 exact ones. Okay, I love that pivot. I live in my community too. I live in a front line farming community. That's important. Now that gives more questions. Yeah, feel free with questions.
A little bit like different process, whether you think of yourself as an individual with a name or the I think that
For the assets you bring to the table, again, it's just how high is your confidence that you as a person deliver that organization.
I don't know.
It's fine to me.
When I help farmers.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you, that's great. Great point of distinction. This is what you as an individual can bring to the table. Okay? You as an individual, we are a collective group that's going to try to create a new opportunity, and we're only going to do it because we have our own assets that we bring to the table.
I'm glad I asked. I'm convinced.
Yeah. Yeah, because we can't activate the farmers. So yeah, what's Pam's role in that or something similar?
Great.
Isabel, design skills like graphic design or web design? Okay. Okay. If you want to give a couple examples in parentheses of what that means, just so when other people look at it, they know how to use it. So you're getting me hungry with this menu planning.
I know.
What do we have? Got an idea? Well, like, if I ask that question, then I don't even want that on there. So, with the menu before, like. Good, just add that one piece, because even now I understand it. Alright. Me's perfect.
One of them is hard.
Helga, these are great. Isabel, fantastic. Okay, good, I like it. Lena, these are great. Sophia, can you give some examples of the mediums in there? Just put them in parentheses.
Yeah.
Just want to spark like a thought. Sophia, how would you differentiate your third asset from what other people's food systems thinking ability? Is there something unique about it? I mean, there probably is, right? So it's really just you know, quantifying. Is it because of your experience, the perspective you gained from that? Is it because of where you sit in the ecosystem at large? Think about that as a way so that because here's what I want it to be something that people can say, well, that's different from what I do. Like I bring food system thinking ability, not that. Thomas, straight, tell me about it.
So you're able to see that. I don't even know if they answer. I don't know how you guys said it. That's what I'm saying.
You have knowledge of, influence over. Okay, knowledge of and influence over. Why don't you add that to it so people can understand how they might act.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eugene, identify resources. What kind of resources? You have a special lens on it, right? Everybody here's. There's a change rate. Others not. So we want to try to act. Capital resources. It's that it. Take it down. And public-private partnerships, same kind of thing. Which one? For this. About 2 more minutes on this step.
And on virtual platforms, we're doing things and whatnot.
Okay, yeah.
How do you? Oh, quite literally. And I mean, those are skills. We don't have to do it. Ah. Really?
last night, that's not. I was like, oh my gosh, it's really like.
All right, we're looking good. Thomas, you got something good? Yeah, there you go. And then just for that one, Eugene and Thomas, what kind of public-private partnerships that would relate directly to that question of improving farmer participation, improving supplier? Which ones improve? Which ones in your mind are the most effective? All right, so for those outside the fishbowl, hopefully you're thinking of assets that pertain to your formative questions, which again are going to probably need to be massaged by the group and thought through, but should be pretty close to where y'all want to take things. And you're going to be looking to bring those assets to the table. The next step is called linking and leveraging. Briefly introduce those. But while they finish up, I'm going to go ahead. So in linking and leveraging, we're creating new opportunities by looking at this beautiful asset. So go back and look at it. I'm going to shrink down all of these different assets that pertain to the same thing. This is 10 people, this is 30 assets that lay out before us, all uniquely created and well-defined so that they could be applied to the same thing. So now you've created the menu, so to say. Now what I want the 10 of you to do is go back and look at other people's assets. Okay? Other people's assets. Take a look at what stands out to you, what really resonates as something that you think needs to be a part of this equation. All right, now normally with a small group, I'd let you steal one of your own assets, but we're not going to do that. You're going to have to take 3 assets from somebody else. So I'll be a guinea pig. Let's put stuff down here, and now I appear here. Okay, so what I'm going to do literally is I'm going to go on this page, and for all of you tomorrow, you'll be doing, you'll have one of these action packs, and you'll be able to do this if you have a laptop. Or for the 10 of you now, I want you to do this. I'm not even looking at which ones they are. I'm going to right click, copy. Again, it's not perfect. It works.
Oh.
Right click, paste. I'm moving the 3 assets that I really, really like over to this page. Okay. And when I'm done with all that, I'm going to have this box here, which is opportunity. I'm going to create out of those 3 assets something new, something novel, something unique that does not exist right now. It could push the envelope forward on us trying to create this new reality with improved farmer participation in approved supplier program. Notice how I keep saying that over and over. I want that to really embed as our compass. All right, so once I do that, I'll have my 3 and I'll have my opportunity. So as you all finish with I created my own assets, now I want you to start really getting creative and stealing other people's assets to create a new idea. So again, it's a right click, go to the assets page, right click on it, copy, don't cut.
And we put it on our own name.
You put it on your own name on that opportunities tab. So Brett's down here, Tom's already getting started. Ophelia's line is here, Denise's is here. Just fill out those 3 group assets. Take your time, look over that asset map, really let it sink in. Think about that 3 that really call to you. Okay, take a few minutes. This should be one of the slowest steps in the process.
So
Don't rush through it.
we don't have to do the opportunity statement yet?
You're gonna do it after, so you list your 3 group assets, and then when you look at them, and again, like, let's use the food analogy. You've gotten 3 ingredients off the table, and you're like, what can I make with this? What's my recipe? Like, what's my new thing that I'm going to bring to the table? Yeah, you were. Okay. Got it. I will fix font sizes and things. Don't worry about that. Now,
Or if you might.
now here's the cool thing. This is our first restaurant. We put this open up a restaurant. So this is one that makes most sense to kind of see our banner restaurant, banner. And then we can go back and use constant cool that.
Everything here is an asset, just.
Yeah, we kind of prioritize. That's right. What's the base card? It was like a platter, silver platter, or something like that. Like back in the day, that one meal. What's the- Oh, the meal. This is your meal.
That's what you said you're here.
Okay.
Don't worry about like little text, faux pas, I'll fix those. This particular one?
It's like a pot, right? Or like a.
You can see the Mexico ground channel.
Right,
Plus, the advantage not having. Or.
Well, it's like first collaboration.
Yeah, they gotta put up with it.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Oh, my God, man.
Instead of just what it is you do, I appreciate it.
Josh, any luck? Got it? You guys outside the fishbowl, just you only, okay? You only don't.
Don't get involved with
Don't
us.
get involved with that. Let the fishermen on their. Julia, you got, do you have the same one twice? That's all right, take your time. This is.
I really like that one.
Just, it's nice to grades. Damn, I got that, I'll fix it.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right, go ahead, you can repaste it. Yeah, go for it. Okay.
And if not, I can do it. I just sit down, I like.
That's a big one.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say.
All right, so the finish line for this step, for my 10 in the fishbowl, is to get those 3 assets that really call to you out there and then write a new opportunity. So it should be a sentence or 2. It's really clear, understandable, and again, is going back to address this question. How might we improve farmer participation in the improved supplier program? Don't worry about like spelling, we're not here to go with grace. Okay, looks like everybody's got at least one group asset on there. Thomas, Eugene, how are we doing on? All right, I just wanted to say, we want to make sure the train was still,
Oh, yes.
a lot of coal in the engine.
But I don't want anybody to like, oh, you too much.
This, you are in the fishbowl, I mean, it's real. You're on a Google sheet, so everybody's seeing it.
But I don't want to ask you.
Not for those who don't like to be observed. All right, try to get to move to your opportunity now. Create your opportunity that's unique, it's novel, that combines your three group assets in a unique and creative way. We'll give you, how are we doing on time? If you want to create the opportunity, take your three group assets, write in a couple sentences, something that ties them together. So like looking at yours.
I don't know what. I have a computer. Is that correct, Brett? Tie all three together and then see something out of that?
That's right, yeah. Three that you worked on, there were three group assets you served as. Tie them together, create two sentences that really sum up what new opportunity. 2:23, try to get there in about the next 3 minutes. And again, for those of you outside the fishbowl, this is kind of where, like, your assets based on your appreciative question, but this is kind of where it stops. Now it just whets the appetite for tomorrow when you get to actually work with the group and see what they all put on the spreadsheet so you can start to combine those assets. You'll be going through the same stuff tomorrow.
I appreciate that you're just.
It'll be great though.
All
right, how are we doing on these opportunities? We see a lot of great boxes, which means people are trying to think.
Yeah. It's also really sort of, it says small apple. It feels like kind of randomly picked.
All right, Michael, Thomas, Eugene, you guys about ready to create an opportunity?
Well, yeah, I'm on my computer right now. Sorry, man.
That's
You know,
all right.
that was really good fruit.
Dan's still working, Ophelia. All right, now, again, just like when you were creating the assets, I'm gonna start to look at these, ask some quick questions. So.
It's always good to have one.
Ophelia, for yours. Put 5 at the end of it. So you're straight.
You just read that.
Production. So what are those asks for speak to talk about what'll happen? What you'll do.
Well, then maybe.
Isabel, great job.
Because when you get too heady,
Like our usual, like
question number, like quality of question.
I know, I was reading that.
Yeah, too many words.
Denise, that's great. Oh, Elena, that's great. Good job. And Sophia, yours sets up such like, it creates a good environment to be able to just kind of go from there. It's not super defined, but it's like a really nice realm. And people could get really creative. What's that? That's why I think I'm saying no.
I'm not sure.
I think I'm saying no, because I think the group could really dive into that if this one does surface and define it. You know, you're just kind of creating the sandbox, then you're letting them play. All right, 2 more minutes and then we got to get these opportunities framed out.
Hey, what grade did you keep?
I started in high school,
Yeah, you seem like a high school.
then middle school,
But you went down.
history, and I did elementary school.
Yeah. Seem like a high school teacher.
Loud voices. All right, we've got 7 out of 10. Dan's working, Eugene's working. Thomas, how you feeling? Okay, yeah. 2 people, 1 left. Wow.
Nice. Simply don't have
All right. New Mexico Grown Group. For those of you that are done, for those of you still working, Thomas, Pam, Eugene, go ahead. For those of you that are done, I want you to see what also happened. Your name got populated all the way over here. You each have your own row. So here's Ophelia in what looks like N. Here's Helga in P, Pam and R. So everybody's got their own row. Now, I'm going to give you 3 votes. 3 votes. And you've got to go down your column. Sit row, didn't I? Down your column. And you use those 3 votes, not until everybody's done, but to vote for the ones you really like. So I'm going to pretend I'm Ophelia. Don't worry, Ophelia, I'll give you your votes back. Let's just say I pick this one, and this one. So I'm done. And I know I'm done because I go down to the bottom and there's a little 3 right there. It tells me. All right, this is good for everybody tomorrow too. When you hit this step, you're all going to vote. You're going to have a little less structure than these guys have. So you want to make sure that you're just checking yourself. So everybody only had 3 votes.
So we're voting on the opportunity column.
Yeah, I haven't even said that part. Have I? The votes you're giving are on the best opportunities, what seems to be the best opportunities that have emerged through the process. Okay, did you get that? I'll just keep it down here. Bell's got it voted. Celia's got it voted. Rod voted.
Did I put a flag? That way it's private. With cabinet also. Meaning that-
I like
Oh, yeah, next Friday.
So I actually went through the- And so, then again, we get census very good. Oh.
Let's start the process. Fix that box. Doesn't. All right, I've got a lot of books in. Looks like we're waiting on. That's all right. Eugene, Thomas, go ahead, get some books in. Denise, you ready to vote?
Sure.
Uh-oh, Thomas, we didn't get an opportunity for you. You holding it so you get one vote? Yes. So look at this one, a little bit of spotlight.
Oh, she was scrolling. Oh. Yeah. Oh, no.
Definitely.
Just trying to read the.
All right, almost getting there now. Okay, so, Lana, you still have one vote left, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're fine. They'll change their mind. Denise and Helga, you have a good conversation going here, keep it up. Yeah, for those of you on the outside, when your opportunities are created tomorrow, you're gonna be in a small group, there's a chance to really talk about them, like, hey, Josh, what did you mean by this? And Juan can give, get a better understanding, or Valerie can ask a question that surfaces something that Kyle brought up. So it can be that kind of conversation. For the Fishbowl, they're already having it, they're talking in small groups to make sense of all these. Usually in a group online, we can do this pretty easily just by having the conversation in that setting.
Yeah. I did it deeper than yeah.
Let's talk.
I wish I could ask this clarifying.
All right.
Yeah, so we can do that. Yeah, because I'm.
So, let's see, Helga is finishing voting. Here's now we can start to get an idea of where things are falling. So over on our right column, you start to see some of the vote totals take hold. And again, this is a key thing to mention. All right, you always hear the phrase, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. In this case, we don't throw the baby out, we don't throw the bathwater. We keep everything. Think about the beautiful assets that you have right here. The creative force that's happening. You have this asset map of 30 assets you can constantly come back to and think about. Okay? You also have this opportunities list with now 10 opportunities that have been stood up. So none of this should be dismissed. It can always be, it becomes a repository that you can come back to. All right, so, but in order to prioritize and get us doing something, because again, this is conversational, it's ideation phase, but we're not getting into the do yet, right? We're not even framing the do yet. In order to do that, we want to look at where the votes. Thomas Eugene, you reconsidering? All right, so already we can see, look at illuminate a pathway for farmer capacity. That's got 8 votes. We can see create and promote a suite of market opportunities for farms. That's got 6 votes. Those are pretty strong consensus that the group feels pretty strongly about those two, and those two only, honestly. The other ones are pretty spread out. So what we're going to do for the sake of this exercise is we're going to advance just those 2 if I can get the group to feel like, yes, those 2 are the ones that should advance at this stage of the game. It doesn't mean we're dismissing anything else. It might be time and place. In the spring or the summer, you might want to come back and say, remember when we came up with that opportunity to do X? Now's the time to consider that. But for the sake of the exercise, do the 10 of you look at those 2 and feel good about continuing to flesh them out further?
Okay, got it. Yeah, so then, so we don't advocate now something that we would like to see in one of those two, but we do that at another time.
If we had a little more time, we'd figure out what we want to do third one to advance.
Okay.
For the sake of an example, I'm gonna advance those two for now. You all will be able to revisit tomorrow. So I'm copying over opportunity 1, opportunity 2. They've got, we got some vote switching. Hold on. I'm gonna wait a second. Thomas, Eugene, you guys good, or you got more votes to give? All right, okay, so we'll work from here. All right.
Can I ask you a process question?
Yeah.
If we were doing this with more time, would we be explaining these to
We'd
each other?
be conversing.
Okay, because like I think there were questions about, well, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
But anyway,
exactly.
that's good.
So this is what we're gonna do. Your group will be, like, they're starting at step 1 tomorrow. Your group can pick up right at that opportunities page, and you as a group of 10 can converse. And then you can think about, well, we advanced those two, but do we really want to? Is it something that we want to maybe consider? Do we have a third one that really starts to make sense to consider, given what we have on the list? Yeah, just in order to give everybody the understanding of the process. I'm pushing it.
And then tomorrow, I know.
All right.
If that's.
We have about 17 minutes left, and then this session is completely done. So for the sake of understanding, we have 2 opportunities up here. I want the group to kind of now take a look at them, ask questions about them, and whoever's the architect of each of them, I want you to try to, in 5 words or less, come up with what we call a bumper sticker title. Something that can fit on a bumper sticker to explain what this surfaced opportunity really is.
So I like those two, though, right?
Just these 2. Yeah, because Pam, we probably need, and you guys will do this tomorrow, you probably need like a 10-minute conversation about what's left to really get some sense of consensus and agreement on what should advance out of the rest. They were all like 3.
For most, it's like in those two, it's like. The assets up here.
So Pam made the point that the 2 that surfaced really seem to capture the sentiment of a lot of the other ones. When y'all look at it, do you feel that way? See something there that's universal, all encompassing, or heavily encompassing?
It just depends on how the person explained it, so maybe.
That's what we'll come back to tomorrow, so we'll get further explanations on this. But for these 2, how about a bumper sticker title? Who's got illuminate? Who wrote that one? All right, Helga, how would you, we'll give you first crack and then we'll let the group help you. How would you try to shrink that down to 5 words or less?
Illuminate the pathway to Mexico food justice.
A letter cheat. Over 5, but that can fit on a bumper sticker. We can make that work.
We can have it NM.
There we go.
We almost got it there. Who's the creator from whose idea was that?
You take the word D.
Yeah, I just like illuminate the path.
Yeah, because it's outside right here.
Ooh, now that's a slogan. That's like an advertising campaign. Grow your indigenous business with Mexico.
It really is.
That's good. That's Isabel, right? Yeah, but you wrote that one?
Good job, Isabel.
All right. Again, just for the sake of modeling, not necessarily this is how we do the process. So we get them that way. Everybody should have a good understanding of what they are. This group will come back and converse those tomorrow, and you all will get a chance to start from scratch and create your own and converse. It advances to the big easy, and this is where I'm going to end. So the big easy is a way for now to put some objectivity on. I talked about this before, but now to flesh it out. So there's a little XY axis up here. On the Y axis is impact from low to high. On the X is ease of completion from low to high. You each are given a grading scale of 1 to 5. Okay, for these two different opportunities. If it's going to be really, really hard to do, I want you to give it a 1. If it's going to be really, really easy to do, if it falls somewhere in between, you make that call. Kind of hard to fairly easy for, you know, somewhere in the middle. If it's going to have really, really low impact, in your opinion, give it a 1. You think it's going to be a super high impact idea, give it a 5. And again, if it falls somewhere in between. So easy 5, high impact 5. A difficult 1, really low impact. So you each have your rows, like here's Olivia's for easy impact, and for opportunity 1, and easy impact for opportunity 2. So you go across your row and do that. It'll auto tabulate down here at the bottom. And then we're gonna come back tomorrow and add a third one and talk about these a little further. But that's where we'll stop today. Let's see how this shakes
So
out.
just based on assumption, because like, right, there's a lot packed into those, and we don't know how.
Agreed. And so tomorrow you go back to step 3, the opportunities. Make sure everybody feels good about those. Reaffirm the vote. And then if they do make it to the next step, you'll have a better understanding, and then you can reassess how you vote.
Okay.
This is just
This
a,
is a guess,
this is a
a wild guess.
yeah, model. This is for everybody.
Right.
Remember Denise, when I talked about trying to pack all this in?
Yeah, oh, totally. No, I said, you're right.
Yeah.
And I like to run.
Right. That's why I was
Sure.
It's not set in stone. Coming back, yeah. Yes. And by the way, those who are not type tomorrow, you have well over 2 hours to go through this process in small tables. So it's gonna be a little. So fast and furious. No.
Yeah.
Weren't they the test?
Yes. Potential for one.
Yeah.
I like
I don't know either, because I can use you on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I actually, yeah, it's just.
Can I just think of
Everyone else.
Well, easy stage.
Well, we can have that.
We'll see. Okay, wow. We got votes to come, so I'm not gonna hide the voting. It's hypothetical, they don't even have a clear understanding of what they're voting for, like a presidential election. Don't know who it is.
Right, like, it was hard, it's one.
Hard is 1. Low impact is 1. Easy is 5. Because we want the easy, you know, we want them easy and we want them higher.
Yes, we do, while we're drinking.
Yeah.
Right, no, 1 is the hardest, 5 is the easiest.
That's right. Low scores for hard. Harder it is, less likely we want, we're gonna be.
Very many times.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, hold on, I guess so that was smart.
That's, I think that's where the impact balances it out. So, are we gonna find a unicorn that's 5 on each, 5 on impact? Probably not. Are we at least gonna apply an objective lens now? Helps us understand. Well, at least this one's.
I know, not that I didn't
And one more thing I want to do.
kind of hard. Get a giant one lens.
All right, so just because we're running out of time, everybody in the room, just take a look at where things landed. We got a 64 and a 56, or no, it's constantly moving 70. This is like, it's like election. It's like election. Precincts are reporting. 73, 62 and moving. It's close. So if it is close, open it up to conversation, deeper conversation. You know, why did you think? And another thing to look at, what I always like, it's not a rule of strategic doing, but I always like, you want to consider which one's more important, ease or impact. I'd rather take on something hard, it's going to be high impact, than take on something easy that's going to be lower impact. So if you want the impact score, that's the more important score to me. You want to be able to do something. Like if you just do something that's really easy, but it doesn't yield much. So it's got 5s across the board here, but 1's here. What have you really done? You know, if you're willing, you're going to know your group too. Like the 10 of you will know each other, and you're looking around, and you're looking. You do a little bit of a gut check on everybody in the rooms. Are these the people who are actually going to deliver on this? And you're like, yeah, all right. Well, let's take on the harder thing, especially if it's going to happen. So that's as far as we're going to go today. They're going to go back and they'll have a much more clean, refined version of this. But what we packed into 90 minutes, including an introduction to the process, I usually do in 2.5, 3 hours. So you got a little taste of it, and it'll set you up, I think, for tomorrow. But before we do break on this, are there questions? I want to make sure you all get like a couple minutes to breathe before we go to DEI. So are there questions about process? Are there questions about where the focus should be in something like this? Just making you feel comfortable for the work you're going to do. Is it bullshit?
I'm just kind of curious if there's part of a process for evaluating.
Yeah.
Medium rating for everything.
Yeah, and I said we're putting an objective lens, but it's subjectively derived, right? Like everybody's bringing their opinion about ease and impact to the table, but it gives us kind of at least an aggregate understanding of how the group feels. The truth, the proof will be in the pudding. So we can say, all right, option 1 seemed to be the one that was illuminated, right? That was Helga's. So Helga seems to be the one that we want to move forward with, and by moving forward, worth pointing out, like you're going to get into this slide and you're going to define those characteristics and success metrics. And then we'll be able to go back 2 months out, 3 months out and say, well, are we hitting these metrics? And that'll be a little bit of tie to it. You can even flesh out more and create what we call a Pathfinder project with this. It really, really fleshes it out. We don't do that typically in this process because we have other ways to do it. But, it sets you up to understand, okay, I think we'll know. The proof will really be, how does the group feel about what's happening? Are they like, this kind of made sense. Let's go back and look at that one that got passed. Let's reconsider that. That's why I say fail forward. Like you never hit a spot where you're like it's over. No, it's just, okay, that didn't work. Let's find a new path. That's agile. Right? Constantly looking for the new path. Yeah, so I feel like, yes, there is a way to assess whether or not it's successful and to reassess your direction. Other questions or comments?
I think I'll just say that tomorrow morning we'll attempt to sort of give you guys the guidance again of where we've been at in the work teams and how this fits, and then what the steps are after this strategic doing training that anchors it back to our collective impact process. So like the leadership team, some of the other structural things we have in place. So that will come tomorrow.
And I'll have an action pack for all 3 of the other groups. Lena, if you can just give me those questions digitally so I can port them in.
Yep.
And then those will be waiting for you. I guess Michael will put them in the Slack again. Yep. Okay. And we'll see how you do. it'll be me, Aaron's gone through this a couple times, David's gone through it. We're gonna just roam between the 4 groups. We're gonna start with the 3 groups that didn't do it today, so y'all can get, out of the gate. And then we're just gonna kind of circle around. So you'll have a lot of Q&A, but we want you to, this group has got a head start. We want you all to like at least get to this point. So that when you come back for your weekly or bi-weekly working group meetings, you can say, let's dig in, let's attack this. That's all.
One last question, can you also, like, if you had 2 ideas that were kind of tied, could you use this and then like, because I
Do
think.
2
if
of
you-
these.
Yeah, do 2 of these and then you look at the characteristics and the metric, you'd have more details and then,
Yep, that's simple. Just right click on this,
yep,
duplicate,
yep.
then you got tabs to do it. Great idea. No one's ever actually suggested that, but usually probably because they're not in a room and ready to critique at this time. So, a little different in Cyrus. Okay, well, thank you all. I appreciate it. I know this was a lot to take on and think about without actually doing. We're talking about strategic doing and having to just watch more than that. But hopefully it resonates for you tomorrow. So